He's writing about Stephen A. Smith, one of our favorites. And it was a thoughtful piece about essentially that he's not a journalist anymore. Stephen A. Smith worked for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he said he's not a journalist anymore. And he's just an entertainer, and he's just a hot take guy. And I'll be honest with you. Well, go ahead. You say, like, why did this kind of intrigue you so much?
Well, it's twofold, Steiny. You were a writer. That was your job. And now you're behind the mic, and our job, you tell me if I'm wrong, Evan, Steiny, and the listeners, is to give our opinions. And I feel blessed on a daily basis that we're able to use this medium to share with you nothing more than our education, or what we deem our education, and our thoughts. Stephen A. Smith used to write for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's a heavyweight. But how he's moved up the ranks and became one of the most popular to ever do it is he's on First Take. And he did the math a couple of days ago of how many takes he gives on a weekly basis. Jason Page used to be with the Steiny, thought what he's doing nowadays on TV is not journalism, because Stephen A. is always reminding everybody or throwing out that card that he's a journalist. And a guy that won a contest, and I'm not demeaning my own self, a guy that didn't go to Syracuse School of Broadcasting, a product of social media perhaps, I got to this medium because of things of that nature, and I don't shy away from that, and I'm proud of it. But at the end of the day, Jason was just basically, and a lot of people have called out Stephen A. Smith. I think it's jealousy. I think Stephen A. is now doing so much that is in front of our eyes, Steiny. People that were in this corner are now starting to hate him. But that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is, what Stephen A. Smith to me does on a daily basis, you're giving takes. You're not a journalist. And if you're going to call out Jaylen Brown on air, on TV, on your show, mid-sentence, and say somebody just text you that Steiny is not marketable because he was out in front and center during what we have 2021, the Black Matter. Yeah. If you're going to go that far, Stephen A., and say that about Jaylen Brown, and I watch that, I'm like, you got to put somebody's name on it.
No, you don't.
And the great Isaiah Thomas, the point guard,
you don't.
For the Detroit Pistons, came over the top and responded, how dare you say that about Jaylen Brown, who I've been mentoring, without putting somebody's name on it, because what you're doing is reckless, and that's not fair. So I saw that beef, and I just sat back and got my popcorn like,
that has nothing to do with
I don't know what
anything.
to believe, but Daryl L. Johnson I believes if I'm going to say something that strong about Evan Grandy or Matt Steinmetz, I don't think I can hide behind.
It's not the way it works.
A nameless entity telling me that.
Well, that's the way it works. That's the way journalism's been forever. You don't have to reveal your sources.
But he's not being a journalist on First Take.
Yes, well, that's my point. He's part journalist when he's a journalist.
Can you do both, Steiny?
Yes, you can do both.
I'm asking because I don't think you can.
Okay. Remember last year when Stephen A. Smith, out of nowhere, talked about Jonathan Kuminga and talked about, I think he said they're not crazy about his work ethic.
No. What
do you think? He just made that up? There's no chance he made that up. Somebody in the Golden State Warriors organization told him that Jonathan Kuminga isn't working hard or doesn't have the greatest attitude, and he reported it. That's what writers do. Woj would do that. Sam Amick would do that. He doesn't have to reveal his source. Nobody reveals their sources. So, I mean,
that happened. And that's
is he an entertainer? Yeah. Is he a journalist? Yeah, at times I think he is. Sure. I mean, that's what it is now.
But he's no longer writing, Steiny. So just again, and you would know this way more than me, but the journalist component is kind of retired. The Stephen A. Smith we know he gives his opinion on. So I guess he's doing both. Is that against the rules? I don't know.
What about Howard Cosell? He was absolutely a journalist, wasn't he?
But
he told it like it was.
No doubt. And he's the one and only. But Steiny, there was not social media for people to write what Stephen A. or what Steiny is doing is not being a journalist. He's now just a bunch of hot air. That's part of this too, is everybody has a forum. And everybody, and I'm not, who am I, but the people, the nobodies have a forum. And social media is giving that platform to, as crazy as this sounds, Steiny, to even the playing field. Because to me, here I go. To me, back in the day, you had to earn the right.
You don't think he's earned it?
No, totally earned it, to give the take. There wasn't a lot of hot takes. You had to earn the right to, with your pen. I'm talking about the Jay Mariottis, the Skip Bayless before First Take.
They're journalists.
They were.
Okay.
At one point.
Right. What makes them a journalist? They report at times, and that's what Stephen A. does. Let me tell you something. If the beat, I don't know who the beat. Yeah. I'll use Gary Washburn.
Okay.
Because Boston Globe writes for the.
I know him.
Yeah. So if somebody inside the Celtics organization said to him, you know what, there's a little rift. You know what, Jaylen Brown and Tatum aren't really getting along. They're just not fitting together. That's what reporters do.
Right.
Then he writes it or he says it on the air.
All right.
And he says, look, there's trouble brewing in Boston. I get it. He's an entertainer, but he's also probably tapped in as much or more than anybody else.
So you understand Stephen A.'s reaction when guys like Isaiah came after him of how dare you use your platform to say that without putting a name on it.
Well, without
Stephen got hot, and I'm not saying he shouldn't have got hot. I just don't look at Stephen A. Smith, Steiny. I know how credible he is on what he used to do, and it's kind of like you used to write. But right now, you share your opinion, and maybe you're writing verbally. I'm not saying Stephen A. should have put a name on it.
He shouldn't have.
If I'm Jaylen Brown, that would have pissed me off.
Okay, so what? Like, that doesn't matter. And I get it. But revealing sources, I mean, that you don't have to do that. The media doesn't have to do that. They've never had to do that. Sources always have been protected. And now if he takes more liberty than other guys, that's just okay. That we can talk about.
Well, where's the fine line, Steiny? If I came in here, let's just say, okay, and I'm for real, just for the example here, something's going on with the Lakers and I come in here and drop Handy's name, or you guys know Handy's my guy, and I say something that on good authority I have it. Do you think I'm abusing, or I'm being fake, or I'm doing a disservice to the listener or even you by not telling you where I got that information from? Like, what's to stop me from making stuff up to say?
Nothing. Nothing except your dignity.
Integrity, yeah.
And integrity. I mean, like when back in the newspaper days, columnists were paid to give their opinion, and they were considered journalists. I mean,
and that was it. You were one of a few that had that forum or blessing. But now with social media, Steiny, you can get it, Steiny's of the world, and say, you know what, your piece stunk, blah blah blah. And again, I don't know where this thing is headed.
Okay, you tell me. You tell me what this is, because I remember this vividly. When Kevin Durant was with the Warriors, that third year, okay? At the beginning of the year, stuff started to happen.
I'll never forget.
And I'll never forget in December, I'd been talking to people here and there, whatever, and I said to a couple people who are NBA guys, I'm like, what's going on with Durant? What do you think about Durant? And somebody that I respect said, well, the league thinks he's gone. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, everybody in the league thinks he's leaving.
Okay.
Or he's going to leave. Okay, so in December, I said, look, I heard that the league, most people in the league think he's going to leave Golden State. So what's that? I guess that's me being a journalist, because about 3 or 4 people said it, and I'm just kind of going on the air reporting it, but I didn't say, hey, I'm being a journalist now, when I was just, chirping on the air.
No doubt. And
but,
to answer, go ahead.
Yeah, so
my answer to that is something totally different because you're not messing with anybody's chicken. When you say somebody says somebody's not marketable, that's heavy. That's now you're messing with possible money and endorsements. So that's why when you say what you said about somebody's locale next season or their free agency decision, I think that's a walk in the park compared to
I know
you
it's a walk,
saying,
but
you know what, Guru, you couldn't. I mean, I guess maybe that's what set me off that Steven said it like, dude, that's heavy. I mean, and you're saying it to the world.
But from a journalistic standpoint, the fact that it's heavy is irrelevant. It's just irrelevant. If it's newsworthy information and he's got it and he thinks he's got it from a credible source, then he's a journalist when he reports it that way. If he says, I got a text from, when the heck was it? Gosh, when was it? Oh, somebody, remember when they were comparing Magic to Curry and who's the best point guard? And Magic said, I've got titles.
I remember.
Do you remember that Stephen A. Smith was on set and he got a text from Michael Jordan? And Michael Jordan in the text basically said, I say Magic is better.
I remember. Okay.
Well, that's news. That's news. That's journalism. That's Stephen A. Smith having a connection / source with Michael Jordan. Now, on that one,
he got the name of who said it.
Right. But he wouldn't have had to. But then it would have been like, well, some NBA player thinks Magic's better. Nobody would have cared. But like that, I mean, I think he's...
No, I'm probably confusing the masses, but I guess my bigger question, Steiny, is do you look at guys like Stephen A. Smith more as journalists or guys that give their opinion?
Yeah, both. Both, and I think that's what everybody does kind of now. For example,
everybody doesn't have that platform.
Well, for example,
thrown into his own podcast.
For example, who have I? Give me a player that I've been hard on.
Draymond Green,
Steph Curry.
Well,
okay,
we had answers.
Okay, well, what if you can't use Curry? Use Wiggins.
Stop.
Let's say I've been killed. Wiggins is sleepwalking. Well, what if over the course of the first 2 months of the season, I had a couple guys in the Warriors organization, and they're just like, this Wiggins guy is such a problem.
Right.
What do you mean? Well, he's just AWOL, and he's messing up chemistry. Okay, chances are I might not say, I got two sources in the Warriors organization that says Wiggins is messing things up. Probably wouldn't do that. But I might say, there's a good chance Wiggins is messing something up in there. Like, I think he might be messing something up. So I'll borrow what I think is a valid opinion to push something that I also believe in. Is it news? Not really. But do I believe it? Yes. And have I come around to that person's point of view? If I do, then I use it. If I don't, if I'm like, well, no, I love Wiggins and he's not a problem and I'm just going to keep saying he's not a problem. Well, you can do that too.
Yeah. Well, I just find it interesting.
No, I got you.
I grew up in a world where it was Monty Poole and Scott Osler. And, of course, those guys and gals worked their ass off to get where they were, and Killians of the world, Steiny. But the inception of social media, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but everybody now has a forum.
Well,
and I guess is that good for the game? But you're talking to a guy that watches Twitter now with 50,000 people I don't know or 50 million people because I want to read what everybody thinks about what I'm watching as well. And then it's like my diary. I write what I think. So I've been, I'm not saying something's better or less. I'm nobody to do that, but it is kind of fun. But I wonder, and I'm speaking to a former writer, Steiny, or a writer. Do you look at it like, you know what, this is BS that everybody, these no names have avenues now to voice their opinion, like the whole thing on X.
Well, you used Ann Killian. And for those that don't know, Ann Killian worked at the San Jose Mercury News, and now she works at the Chronicle. Well, okay, she's a columnist. She probably did, but She never broke a story. She is a columnist.
And gave her opinion.
Right. Yeah. And she's a journalist.
Gotcha.
Okay, so what's the problem?
She's not on TV every day talking about...
But she has a forum on social media and in news and in print.
I guess this is about the multiple. Like Bonte. I talk to Bonte all the time, and he does a great job on TV and here. Steiny, do you think there's some things he knows?
Of course.
So, but that's part of the game, right? It
depends what he wants to do with it.
Yeah, wow.
And that's what Stephen A. like his.
No, people telling me, Guru, the world's changed. I get it. I'm part of it, but I'm just, the Bonte comp was great. Like, you know what I'm.
I mean, if Stephen A. Smith knows Allen Iverson.
He knows.
So if Allen Iverson texts Stephen A. Smith and says, you know what? You're not going to believe this, but I'm coming out of retirement. I mean, Stephen A. Smith is going to report that, and that's journalism. It's flat out journalism. Or somebody even close to Iverson says, Allen's coming back. I mean, at that point, you'd be like, what? Then you try to get in touch with Allen Iverson, and he'd either deny it or confirm it. And if he denied it, then you'd try to get another source to confirm it, and then you get another source or two to confirm it, and then you could say, when reached for comment, Iverson said he wasn't coming out of retirement, but then we got to see if he comes out of retirement or not. But, I mean, is Stephen A. Smith a journalist at times?
Well, and he was. That was his one when it was just, you know what it is? I hold him in such high regard, Stephen A., that I feel like you should be above a source. You are so big. You got so much going on. You got so much credibility that when you should be able to say who sent you that text about Jaylen Brown.
No other journalist has to do that.
I guess when you're number one or you're top, I just feel like...
Why shouldn't he do that? He's got more sources than anybody else. And he does both. He gives his opinion, and sometimes he...
and there's probably jealousy, too, that he's doing both, right?
Yeah.